And we are live. My name's Martin Hawksey. This is Charles Maxon. This is Totally Unscripted. And we're back. Can you believe it, Charles? We're back after 2 years.
Welcome back, Martin, and welcome everybody tuning in. Great to be back. Been looking forward to this. Not sure what took us so long, but here we are. So, Martin,
I think the good news is the format largely the same. So this is your show. So this is your opportunity to talk to us, share your ideas. If you've got suggestions as well, at the end of the show, we'll remind you where you can get in touch. But during the show, you can always hit us up on YouTube. You can already see some people joining in on the YouTube chat. So where have you been, Charles? You went for coffee 2 years ago and haven't been in touch since.
Absolutely. I mean, you probably heard, Martin, this little thing called the pandemic got in the way for a while. And we had an opportunity to actually go out and really focus on doing live engagement. So one of the neat things is I've been around the world at various Nexus and IO events and our own Workspace Summit. So I got to see quite a bit of our audience live in person, which was great to meet people I've never met before in person, which was awesome. But when we came back and realized all that travel, we haven't necessarily been able to, reach all the people we want to reach. And so I'm glad to be back because I think it'd be an awesome time to really engage with people again and bring it back. And since we've been gone, and hence the title that you just pulled up, since we've been gone, which, by the way, if you don't hear the Kelly Clarkson theme song playing here, it's because we don't have rights to it, but you can sing along in your head. The title is definitely similar to that. Since we've been gone, I think an awful lot has transpired. There's an awful lot to talk about. And I'm really excited to actually just, meet with the folks in the community and talk some more. But more importantly, I'm in the same similar role, Martin. I wanted to ask you, what have you been doing since we've been gone? I think a lot more has changed for you personally.
I'm on my second job. But I'm living the dream. I'm a full-time Google Workspace developer. I'm working for a Google partner based in the UK. So, and it's all thanks to you, Charles. Kind of coming out of the pandemic, you said you should go and work for those guys. So I did.
Awesome. And who is it, Martin, by the way? I mean, we have no secrets here.
So I work for CTS, recently merged with Appsbroker. So I think we're now the largest dedicated Google partner in the UK and EU. So really interesting for me as well, having worked so long in education to be working with enterprise customers. And the first couple of weeks working with CTS every weekend, I was watching the TV with the family, and it's like, oh, as the adverts came on, that's one of our customers. That's one of our customers. So it's nice to see that part of the world as well.
That's super cool. And I think, one of my favorite parts of what we do is, developer advocates here at Google, or what you do, Martin, is you get to see what people are doing with the technology. You get to help them. And it's really great to see those benefits. And, super pleased for you to be able to do that. A couple of things real quick about the show that we are going to change is we decided to make it a little bit shorter. So we're going to aim for 45 minutes per episode. And there's an awful lot going on, but we're also going to try to make it every other week. We used to do it weekly, and I think that was a little much for not just us, but for folks tuning in. But I think it's awesome that, there's so many people excited about it and actually want to be on the show. And as you mentioned, Martin, anybody listening in, if you've got a great idea, if you have something we'd love to share to the community, please let us know. Please hit us up. We'd love to have you on an episode as a guest and actually show off your solution, your tips, your tricks, whatever you're doing. Anyway, with that said, real quick, I just want to shout out a bunch of folks that are actually chiming in. John from Unicorn Magic, Pablo, Andrew Roberts, Marco, Jorge, a lot of folks. Awesome. So thank you for jumping in the comments. Again, ask your questions if you have some. But one of the biggest changes, Martin, is we have the format. It's not just me and you. We really wanted to diversify our thinking and our output and our inputs. You mentioned that you're focused on enterprise, which is awesome. But as we know, there's many facets to solutions you can build on Workspace. And so we tried to broaden our horizon and bring a few other folks in. So if I may, I'd like to introduce our first new resident host, who actually comes from the EDU space. In fact, I think this person's story is awesome. A former high school math teacher who decided to automate her classroom and do some amazing things with Workspace and using technology has turned this into a phenomenal way of helping educators be more effective in the classroom and frankly beyond. And so this next person, who when I simply discuss her resume, I get exhausted. She has an 8th book on the way. She has 27 add-ons in the marketplace. She's speaking in Kazakhstan and Peru. She'll be in next week in London. If you were next, she was in the keynote talking about low code, no code with AI. This person's everywhere, so I'm exhausted just saying and talking about it.
And if you're at BET in a couple of weeks in London, you will see this person there.
And I think she needs no introduction, but she has a very famous title. I think it's self-proclaimed, but she is royalty. She is the queen of spreadsheets. With no further ado, Miss Alice Keeler.
Hey, you guys. Thanks for having me. Now I feel tired. It's time for a nap.
I don't know how you do it. We'll get to that in a second because we have a second person we'd love to bring in and talk about and bring in again another interesting perspective on background of what we do. And this person, I think maybe since we're talking royalty, is more, maybe she's the Duchess of Documentation. I don't know. You may not know her name specifically, but I guarantee you've read some of her work if you've ever done any AppScript development, because she's actually in charge of our documentation for AppScript here at Google. And so, well, 1 second, you brought her a little early, Martin. I had a little more to say. One of the things I
wanted to see her blush, though.
So one of the great things about this new host, Kara, by the way, obviously, is how much she loves AppScript. And she brings a great perspective of not just how you create documentation, but all the things people do with it, all the things you can build with it. And I have a couple of stories about her. The first one, which is simply last week, to show you how dedicated she is to this. I pinged her on her vacation. I saw her little orb was green, and I didn't interrupt. I go, "Why are you online in your vacation?" And her answer was, "Well, I'm writing an add-on, of course." I'm like, "Really?
What else
This is what you do for your time off?" And so she truly loves AppScript. I think almost maybe too much, perhaps, which is a great tell. And then my other favorite thing about it, we were born and raised about 5 miles apart from each other in New Jersey, so we're almost neighbors. Like, yeah, sure, it was a few years apart, but we're both from New Jersey. So, Kara Ireland, welcome to the show as well, too.
Thank you so much. And that was gentle. I got a little scared when you said you had some stories about me. So I'm glad it was that one.
Yeah, well, also we've co-presented together and worked together quite a bit, so I'm sure there are. But anyway, so this is our crew going forward. So I think this is great. We have a bunch of different perspectives. I want to jump right into it since this is a review show, but also want to look forward a little bit as well, too. Anybody jump in on this first kind of thought or question? We've been gone for 2 years. What are some of the big things that stick out that you've seen over that period of time that have really changed what you see or think about workspace development?
Well, for me, and it was after my first interview for my current job, I asked, what should I go and do? What do I need to do to be the perfect candidate? And they said, go and learn about AppSheet. And it's ironic, having sat on many shows talking about AppSheet, that I'd never really got stuck into it. So I did. And it's been quite an eye-opener in terms of a platform and a product where I think not just for no coders, I think there's a lot there for coders as well. I think we've already seen things like AppScript integrations into AppSheet, but there's so much more there. And I think right now it's a really interesting time in terms of a product, in terms of what features are coming through and just seeing people being able to get their hands on it. So I think a big change quite recently is that a lot of Google Workspace customers now have free access to AppSheet Core. So it's really quite interesting to see how that people are using that product, taking that product and doing their own things with it, and also supporting customers, creating products for them that they can deploy. So I think that's been one of the big ones for me.
Alice?
What about you, Charles? Bouncing your own question back to you.
You got it back to me. I was going to go to Alice first. Alice, why don't you tell us what you've seen? And it can be EDU or not EDU.
Well, I mean, there's obviously AI has just disrupted everything.
What's AI?
Like I'm completely useless now because Bard and Vertex AI and Gemini will just do it all for me. So I'm not sure what to do next.
Sarah, what have you seen?
You know, when I reflect back on the past couple of years, I feel like Google Workspace's platform has become one of the most approachable platforms that I've seen, just from the offerings of AppSheet to being able to do things that are low code and AppScript. I've seen our GDE community really share some great solutions, everything from built-in Sheets functions through to pro code development. And so I feel like it really has something for everybody. And to Alice's point about AI, we're just building even more approachability and automation into our platform. So it's a really exciting time for anyone looking to automate their workspace environment.
Yeah, and I'll take a different spin to the question, Martin. I think from a perspective looking internally, I think Google has really kind of reinvigorated its frankly, its love and focus for not just a platform for a workspace, but really an ecosystem. In fact, we've rebranded our team internally the ecosystem team. We've actually really built up and really helped partners go to market. We have a partner team now focused on partners that are just dedicated to workspace partners. I know Kara's team and my team, the developer relations team, has also really expanded and really doubled down on our focus on workspace. The products themselves, when you think things like chat and look at the new Meet API, our investments in workspace as a solutions platform, whether it's no code with things like AppSheet, all the way up to full code where you can create Meet add-ons, or you can do things like full based solutions with AI in the back end and in chat on the front end. I just think the investments in the workspace marketplace means you can build solutions that you couldn't build before in a lot of different ways.
I think as well, it's like with chat, I think that's as a platform, it's got the features now, but it's also got the APIs. And so that I think that's a really interesting space. And to Alice's point, I think AI for the Workspace Summit, Romain, one of the GDs, you talked about AI being the point where we can actually do stuff in chat that makes sense. We can interface with the user so much easier. But I think also just even in docs and sheets, the change, previously it was a very kind of word processing solution, but now it's with smart chips and, the whole canvas, it is an application interface in itself. The fact that you can start using docs in so many more ways than you could previously, and be able to do that as a developer as well, I think is really interesting.
Well, I'm really excited to see the shift that it's more of a collaboration space. I mean, this is what I've been saying for years, is that Google Workspace is a collaboration space as opposed to necessarily just a productivity suite. And now you see all of these elements where it's obvious we're not intending to print, we're intending to collaborate. And so that to me is the biggest shift, is really rethinking what this space looks like, where it's strictly collaboration and not just what are we going to print.
No, I agree with you. And since we're talking about since we've been gone, right, which is over this kind of last 2-year period, one of the most monumental shifts is exactly what you said, Alice. It's collaboration. And look at how chat has kind of usurped Gmail as the main collaboration focus, at least on casual and internal conversations. Sure, maybe when you're external to your organization, you still send that formal mail. But a lot of folks have really turned to chat as the primary vehicle. In fact, we built chat side by side with Gmail right inside of the, so to speak, the hub, right? So for example, and so now chat is kind of like the first interface into Workspace for a lot of things we get done. Like everything I try to start off with, I'm notoriously an informal person. I don't schedule meetings and I don't necessarily like to write mails. And so I simply go into chat, say, hey, you there? You want to talk? I'm in the meet. We're talking. We get on with it. And it's changed the way that we look at it. And now, Martin, to your point, we can build solutions that actually take advantage of these new interfaces, these new work experiences where people are actually starting their journey on getting things done and actually add solutions on top of it. So I think technically, since we've been gone, obviously it's been a lot of emphasis on chat. I think chat has actually been built out to be pretty vibrant as a platform. When we left, chat was pretty goodish at doing interactive bots. We used to call them chat bots, moving into apps. Fast forward 2 years later, not only are the interactive bots way more amazing, but also the the non-interactive applications, you actually can do things like create spaces and add members to it and harvest that information that is chat data, that is conversations, that is your IP or your collaboration or whatever you want to call it, and then use it in doing processing, whether that's AI, simply archiving, or whatever the use case may be. So that's kind of a big one for me technically.
Do we want to delve in? I can see we're getting quite a few comments and questions from our live chat. Do we want to pick one of these? I'm going to pick one. And
Sure.
Charles and Cara might go in terror as I pull this one out.
Oh, this is a great one for Cara. I'm going to step out. Go ahead.
That is a great question. I mean, I can't really share too much. It's, I think one of the main things that the AppsScript team has been interested in is seeing what they might be able to do with AI. I think a lot of us have been experimenting with AppsScript and AI in general, but I think across Workspace, as you could see with Duet and everything, we're trying to figure out, how AI will affect every part of Google Workspace, including AppsScript. And so I don't know what that will look like, but that is definitely top of mind for the AppsScript team.
Something I see is more maturity in the platform. So as a Google partner, we're supporting our customers, and a lot of them are developing stuff in Google AppsScript themselves and other tooling. But so it's an area that I keep a close eye on. We've seen recently things like version history being added in, but I think continually around that kind of security and governance around AppsScript usage. I think generally Google is really on the ball in terms of that stuff. If you look at kind of the wider picture in terms like zero trust, and I increasingly see that coming into AppsScript, so that for enterprises that they can use that as a product with more knowledge that that they're doing it in a sensible and manageable and scalable way. So I think that's my prediction coming for kind of short term in terms of AppsScript as a product.
And I think it's interesting, and as we said earlier in the show, it's a very approachable platform, and you hear a lot of noise about alternate run times and using your own code and all this other stuff. But AppsScript is still widely the most used tool within the platform suite. I was teasing Cara just before. Her documentation, AppsScript documentation, is still the majority of what people are looking at every day in our docs site. I saw the stats this morning, and literally 4x of the traffic to our documentation site literally goes to AppsScript. And so it's simply because obviously it's available, it's easy, it's approachable, and you can do it pretty quickly and do a lot of powerful things with it. And so you're absolutely right about that. It just doesn't get a lot of fanfare lately because a lot of the other new things are kind of outside of the scope of it, but it's still super important and super interesting there. In fact, I'm going to bring up a question because I think it's a great question. Hey, Marco. Marco from Latvia asked a question about when will Clasp be revived? It's been stagnating for too long. And the GAS web editor is not on par with VS Code with TypeScript and all the extensions available. So absolutely. I actually had this conversation last night with Dimitri from Workspace Devs. And one of the things is Clasp is open source, and we actually haven't totally supported it. From a product team standpoint, there's been a lot of asks about this. I would love to see, and Martin, I'm going to throw this question back to you. I would love to see, is this being open source something that we think, or we should ask or suggest that the community gets involved in and really picking up Clasp as a tool? I personally don't use it, but I know a lot of people only use it. So, Martin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not a Clasp user, so I think it's a really interesting time, particularly in terms of some of the other products that Google are putting out in terms of workbenches and Project IDX. So kind of online development tools. So the fact that Duet AI for cloud is built into VS Code. So I think in terms of Clasp, I can't really talk to that too much. But in terms of the IDE, I think like a lot of other people, I like to see some of that being integrated. But I think just generally, I think people are adapting their workflows. I don't know people like me, but quite often I'm using Bard now to help me write my script or just tidy it up. I'm quite happy with the kind of context switching. Having used Duet AI for code in VS Code, I find it too intrusive, and I actually prefer jumping out into a Bard window and just copying and pasting stuff and just getting the prompts when I need it. So I think it's a really challenging one to get right in terms of developer experience of having some of these features at your fingertips, but not kind of getting in your way.
You're absolutely right. And another question, not in the list, but we get asked a lot is, when are you going to include AI in the AppScript editor?
Yeah.
I'm like, that does sound good, but also sometimes a little dangerous. By the way, I do know our AppScript team is exploring how do they bring more AI functionality into the product. But you're right. You want to do it in a non-invasive way that actually makes sense, not just wedge it in there to do it. But you said something else. If you ask a trend in the last several months that I've been writing code, yes, I've been having a lot of it written for me by Bard, and I actually love it. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I always said the best code is code written for me. I don't care. Write my code for me. I'm cool with it. No, but it doesn't do a perfect job, but it does a really, really shockingly good job, and I do love it. I want to switch gears for a second because we got somebody on here that has 27 add-ons in the marketplace, and I want to talk about marketplace and marketplace momentum, not just what we as developers are building, but also what are people consuming? What are people looking for? Just real quick, and I don't want to sound like a marketing person here for a second, but I do have some stats. As you know, the addressable market for what we build as solution developers, 3 billion users worldwide, 10 million paying businesses, over 250 million educators and teachers, 5 billion marketplace app installs, 5,500 apps in the marketplace. There's people that are clearly doing this. Alice, you spent the time building 27 add-ons. We'll cover that in another topic episode. We'll talk about the hard parts as well as the easy parts. But what have you seen? What have you learned? What inspired you to do it? And what would you encourage other developers exploring? Is the marketplace a good place to put solutions for themselves?
The marketplace is hands down the best way to get your ideas out there. So before I started publishing to the marketplace, I have hundreds of scripts that I've made and shared, and just trying to distribute it out there and let people know about it is very difficult. So it's more than 10xing your user base and to reach out with people. But for me, being in education, you have to understand that Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides was not designed exclusively for educators. It wasn't an education first product, right? We use it in the workplace probably as the primary way of thinking about it. And so even if you're at a workplace, what you do at your workplace is very, very specific. And so where marketplace is great for is those applications you're like, this is awesome. I love Google Docs, but I really needed to do this for teachers, students, or my particular workplace. And without having that marketplace to add that extra functionality, you're just frustrated. But now it's open to anyone. Like, I have an idea and I'm just able to code it up really quick. A lot of times I make my add-ons in a day. Now, if I want to clean them up and make them fancy or whatever, but you don't have to get crazy with it to get more functionality.
Just take a vacation and build an add-on.
So actually, another good segue. I have another question. So I actually want to celebrate AppScript Pulse. So Martin is prepared for AppScript Pulse, if you don't know. And I've got two questions. First of all, the celebration is because he has just passed his 1,000th post, which is a great, if you don't subscribe to this, by the way, please do. It's a great way just to stay on touch with not just AppScript, and we'll talk about that in a second, but really all things Workspace does. So first of all, congrats to doing that. But I got to ask Martin this question, again, from a marketplace standpoint. What drives you to continuously do this? I mean, you've been a GD for how long?
This is my 10th year as a GD. Never thought I'd be doing a decade of stuff. I have.
Awesome. You know, Martin, when I write release notes for AppScript, I don't think, oh, how is this going to look on developers.google.com? I think, how is this going to look on Pulse?
I went through a phase where I was reposting release notes into Pulse, but I have to say, so Pulse, the only reason it exists is community content. So if people weren't writing and sharing things about Google Workspace development, it would be a very lonely and empty website. So if you haven't visited Pulse, actually one of the most recent things on there is Chanel Greco, one of Charles's and Cara's colleagues, has started a series of videos which are just doing a summary of what's changed in that, a video newsletter. So highly recommend that. So that for me, actually, you can see, and I suppose, Cara, this is the challenge for you. You've got the written form quite predominantly and maybe some visuals, but Chanel's video, I thought in 5 minutes, she squeezed in so much information. So highly recommend just subscribing to those, just to keep abreast of those. Means I don't have to start doing summaries of release notes on Pulse. I can just point to the video. As I say, it's if the community wasn't writing content, I'd be lonely.
So I think it takes both, right? I mean, I think, and if you look down below, you can see that a reference to the kind of the official, if you will, the official Google Workspace Developers YouTube channel, which Chanel, a former GDE, joined our team and really brought a great face and a great ability to bring things down to 5 minutes. Obviously, everything I can say in 60 minutes, she can say in 5. And so the beautiful thing is you can go up there and you can learn very quickly and see a lot of things that we're doing. And she's added this new segment to stay on top of the news because, frankly, there is so much news in Workspace. Like I said, it's been a huge investment area for us. With obviously Totally Unscripted, what we kind of do is a little bit opposite. We want to keep this very community-centric and obviously do that. And as you know, we're not hopefully as polished because that's not really our focus. It's really making sure that we kind of tell the stories about what people are doing. And so I think there's a great amount of content being put out because there's a great amount of things that people are curious in. Kyle, let's switch to you for a second. So obviously you have a really interesting perspective as you get to see all the things that people are looking at. Right? Obviously, you get statistics and you know what people are looking for in content. I also know that one of the great things your team does is react to that. For example, a while ago, you rebuilt and kind of branded the outline and the way people can flow through documentation for AppScript. I know recently the chat team did the same thing. If you're building chat apps, it's so much easier now to go through and see the new navigation and the new elements for chat. The documentation has become so much more effective, and I love that. But what are you seeing from what users are looking for, what people want to do? What's kind of been the big focus for you, specifically in the world of documentation?
Well, for me specifically, what I would like to touch on is my team working on the chat documentation, because they've seen huge growth in use of the chat API and people building more and more chat apps. And that, I think a lot of that was driven by the great developer journey work that our team did to really make the documentation experience a place where you can go step by step through building a chat app using the chat API, in addition to the latest release of the advanced service in AppScript. So now you can more easily build chat apps in AppScript, which is great. And so we're seeing a lot of growth in the chat space, which makes sense. I mean, that's been a growing area for a while now. Another thing that we're seeing is just more and more interest in add-ons, I think both internally and externally. We recently added the ability to create link previews, and we are in developer preview with third-party resource creation, meaning, with your link preview, you can create one right from Docs. So you can create a task. If you're in a meeting and you want to build out tasks in a project management software, you could, create a task right from Docs and have that link preview returned back to you. And so if you're not in the developer preview program, I encourage you to sign up and try that. It's a great new feature. And I think we'll see more and more interest in add-ons, which for me is exciting because I'm also the writer for add-ons. And so I will be focusing on improving that developer experience and, implementing a lot of the lessons that the chat writers have taught us on developer journeys and trying to apply that to the add-on space.
I love it. You even vacation in add-on line. I love that. Hey, so real quick, one of the weird things is we're cutting this down to 45 minutes, so we have to go faster. So I want to do a lightning round. Looking back, I'm going to give you 2 questions. Looking back, what's like the biggest feature thing that excited you the most? And then think on that one. And then looking forward.
This is taking
notes. Not revealing any secrets that you can't reveal. What are some of the things? Alice is taking notes. What are some of the favorite things? What are you most excited about in either working with yourself or seeing evolve or seeing the community use, seeing what developers can build going forward from this point? Who'd like to go first?
I can go first. Okay. And if I talk slow enough, I can think of something.
Remember,
no, I think looking back, I think just bringing it back, for me, AppSheet has brought some really nice features, and just to kind of bring it back to chat as well, the chat integration with AppSheet is just, I can't, whoever did that, I can't thank you enough. And I think that's kind of the missing piece in terms of chat as an advanced service. I think in terms of accessibility, a lot easier for developers to start straight from there to start using chat. But you still got that point of going into the Cloud Console, creating projects, blah, 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 blah. AppSheet, you're clicking buttons and you're there. You've created your chat app, and you're presenting your own interfaces back to the user. So looking forward, Alice mentioned AI. I'm really excited about generative AI in Workspace. I see. We're still in this playful period of exploring what is possible, but I think we're getting to the point where we've played enough that we understand what it can do and its capabilities. This week I published something around Gemini Pro and function calling. If you've not come across function calling Gemini Pro, dig out. You'll find it on Pulse. The post is there. I think it's really fascinating in terms of essentially you're providing the tooling to your generative AI model, in this case Gemini, and it then works out whether or not it should be calling one of your functions. And it's not actually running your function, it's telling you that this is the function, these are parameters. And the fact that you're doing that in AppScript, where a big core piece of that is the user identity, you're running those functions as the user. For me, that is a whole world of really useful and interesting opportunities. And you're seeing me at kind of week one of this. I'm going to be in there for a long time figuring this stuff out and hopefully sharing as much as I can along the way.
Cool. Alice.
Oh, I wrote it down because I get I'm like a squirrel. Just I think the thing for me that's the most exciting is
Got the wrong person up. My bad.
just that it's for everyone. The using Google AppScript and using Google Workspace is really accessible for even people who are newbies. I worked with some people who've never coded in their life. They're at least an intermediate user of Google Apps, but they can create add-ons and things. And so I've been working with people for years, but I think what I'm really looking forward to is that we can iterate faster. There's several things that are just above my pay grade that I just didn't know how to do. And I throw it into generative AI and it's like, oh, here's some code that you can build with. And now I'm creating bigger, better, faster, and then really making that more accessible to other people, just teaching people a few quick prompts and they're able to iterate these things much quicker. And so I'm really excited to see what everybody comes up with that really solves those pain points, especially in education.
Kara.
Yeah, I mean, +1 to everything that's already been said. This might not be a big thing in general, but for me, one of the most exciting things was finally being able to have the diff view and project history in AppScript. I just love it. It's so helpful for me. I often go back to my code and try to see what I did before, if something is broken or I need to revert or fix something. I just love it. But looking forward, I agree. Generative AI has really changed the game. It helps me code so much faster. I'm so excited to have programmatic access to it, using it with AppScript to be able to prototype ideas for our team on, our processes and samples that we can provide to the public. It's a very exciting time for us to be able to explore and play with what's possible.
How about you, Charles? Bouncing back your own question back to you.
At the answer my own question. So first of all, I have too many things that I'm really excited about. If product-wise, for me, I think it's kind of been the evolution of chat as a platform for what you can do with it. If I was to narrow it down, I love the chat API. The fact that you can now do things with chat, not just as an app, but actually as an administrator or a solution builder or someone trying to actually harvest that data out of there. I also love the advanced service on top of that. So from AppScript now, I actually can chat. I can literally send messages in or do some cool things straight from AppScript. So I love the evolution that chat's become more of a platform and more accessible. Echoing going forward, it's really the same similar thing. One of the things I also kind of love looking back that also looks forward is Workspace was already AI enabled, right? We had the framework, we had the users using the products, we had the interfaces, we had the open accessibility from those interfaces to make calls to any backend engine that's doing artificial intelligence. Doesn't have to be even a Google product. It can be anything else. And so the fact that Workspace was already, without really a lot of engineering in the platform, able to take advantage of AI, I think that's super neat. Carrying that on, though, what I'm really excited about, and I'm hopeful for, and I'm hearing a lot of people trying to figure out how to do this right, and here at Google trying to figure out how to do it right with things like Duet AI, is how do we actually leverage the content in Workspace as part of those AI solutions? For example, I have 1,000 documents in Drive. When I can start using those to train my models, right? Or I can start using those to actually do things with, so I can write that 1001 article, or in your case, Martin, that 1001st post, where it's now looking at my voice, my language, my history, my content, actually helping me do it. Help me write, so to speak, and help me write on models that are based on my content. So there's a lot of work to get there and get it right. We've got protection laws around data privacy. We've got to make sure we do that right as developers, but the type of solutions you can build. So yes, we can do less busy work. Yes, we can actually make solutions that all these docs I wrote in the past, all these spreadsheets I've built on, all these slide decks actually can go forward and be used as data, just like chat information as well too. So I'm excited about that. I think that's really going to be the future. I think it's a game changer. As we mentioned at the top, it kind of feels like it's the only thing people are talking about right now. I think the great thing is it just naturally kind of snaps into Workspace. But I think, to bring it back to what Alice says, still the answer is always a spreadsheet.
It's I've talked about AppSheet, but it's still a lot of the customers and kind of a lot of the day-to-day work I'm doing is with Google Sheets and using that as an interface. Alice, you're safe. We still need you to rule us.
So Jorge wanted to jump in, and I absolutely love that you did this, Jorge. Jorge says the past is the new editor, and the faster way to create add-ons in the future. AI as a coder. I love that. That's a great one. Thank you, Jorge, for sharing that.
Yes, big +1. Love the new editor. It's a huge improvement. It's funny to think about what it used to look like just a couple years ago.
What was the old one?
Something we've touched upon is the developer preview program. Something I wanted to play with over the holidays, but got sucked into generative AI was the Meet SDK. I think that's another platform that we shouldn't, I think chat, yes. I think that in terms, Charles, you mentioned in terms of communication, how it works alongside Gmail. Meet is a big piece in terms of how we as a business operate day to day. I'm sure no surprises. A lot of other people are, using Meet quite heavily. But I'm really interested by, and hopefully we'll have a show on this with the Meet capabilities, with the API just to get data and set up calls, but also that whole real estate, I think is a really interesting proposition in terms of being able to build on top of Meet quite easily. The demo I saw was really simple in terms of a couple of lines of code. You're starting to be able to customize it. So that's from the developer preview program. If people haven't signed up to that,
yeah,
I'd recommend it.
If I could go full circle on both those thoughts. First of all, the DPP, as we call it, developer preview program, that folks on my team, Serene and Vinay, were really instrumental of working with all our PMs to get the information out early. And it's been super helpful for developers to see what's coming before it actually hits the marketplace. You can play with it. Your solution could be ready. From our side, we get great input and great feedback, and we actually are able to make adjustments and change features and get it right before we go GA. So if you haven't signed up to this, you want to see what the future is, the link down the bottom of the page here is a great place to get started. Please do sign up for that. And a great shout out there. As you said, with Meet, and again, we definitely plan to have an episode and bring the Meet team on and talk more about it. I think some of the use cases are just brilliant. One of my favorite little demos that I worked with somebody on was the ability to actually have a Meet transcript already synthesized and ask questions from a chat app. Hey, what was that meeting about? What did I miss? What are all the topics? What are the action items? And it's brilliant. And again, just Meet is now a data source. Meet is now a UI service. Meet is now an integrative opportunity to have within your workflows. And so all these great things where, Meet is now going to be a first party API to actually do things with. It's another playground for us. And I think it's going to be super exciting. So I definitely
just to add to that, I really love that Meet add-ons are the first Google Workspace add-on to support iframes.
There you go.
Big moment for Google Workspace add-ons.
And I'm surprised. I'm sure that there's a comment coming up or has come up. And again, we'll talk about those things as well too. So a lot going on. We are getting super close to time, and I want to remind everybody who's tuned in. First of all, thank you for doing so. If you're watching this as a recording, please, we still encourage you, put comments down below. Let us know what you'd like to see. Raise your hand to participate. We love to make sure this is a community show. As you can tell, we can talk until the cows come home, but we'd love to have you join us and actually share your insights and do those type of things here. So absolutely. First of all, gang, Martin, thank you so much for bringing this back. I appreciate that. Alice and Kara, thank you so much for agreeing to join us and share your perspectives. 2024, what do you guys think? What are we up to?
What do we want to give any teasers for the next show?
Absolutely.
Just going to make people sit there and wait.
Oh, go ahead, Martin. Give them up.
Well, I'm super excited because we've got someone from the community confirmed to join us. So if you've seen Alan, the prisoner, Listenberg, present, he's been a GDE longer than me. So he's a font of knowledge around Google Cloud, but right now he's got some particularly good insights and knowledge around generative AI. So I'm afraid if you're sick of generative AI, skip the next episode because that's what we're talking about. It's just that.
I think you're going to want that. And on our side, I got a couple of Google folks that are agreed to come and join us as well too. Donato and Mohammed will come on and talk about the partners they work with, the customers they're talking to, about how they're consuming, and frankly, even what they're asking for. And hopefully, time permitted, we've got some good demos that they may bump into as well too, and show you some of those things. So with that, I think, again, we're staying within our time limit. We hope to do this. We look forward to do this with the community going forward, and hopefully you'll have some fun. But with that, last words from me. Anybody else?
Yeah, it's fun.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, guys.
Do I get the final word?
You get the final word.
Happy scripting.